John.
All right, Sandra, let's bring in John Tykert, retired Air Force Brigadier General, for more on this. The carrier strike group, Abraham Lincoln, headed for the Arabian Sea. What do you make of this? I know that Arab nations, which we have bases, aren't particularly eager to let us launch anything against Iran from there. So what do you make of the Lincoln and its strike group going there?
John, this is an example of help being on the way for the protesters. It gives added options of offensive capability, added options of defensive capability. It's a huge sign to the protesters that we still are supportive of them. And then it also forces the regime to have to consider the external threat in addition to the internal security. And then finally, I think it provides the president options, if he so decides, to provide a blockade of sanctioned tankers like we did in Venezuela to strangle the finances of the regime.
Right. In terms of Arab countries in the region not wanting us to launch from there, what's their concern?
I think part of it is their concerns about stability, oil prices or otherwise, but I don't think they said no. They said no, not yet. I think they had a sense that this week was not the time where strikes would have made the difference for the protesters, but maybe that answer will be different in a week, especially when the carrier strike group is there.
So the urgency to take action against Iran appears to have been dialed back somewhat after the president received assurances from Iran that the killing was going to stop. Here's what he said in the departure just a short time ago.
Urged protesters in Iran earlier this week to keep fighting in the streets and said that help was on the way. Is help still on the way, or has your bar
for
intervention
changed? As you know, Iran canceled the hanging of over 800 people. They were going to hang over 800 people yesterday, and I greatly respect the fact that they canceled that.
So the fact that the president said it's a red line if they kill protesters, and particularly if they hang protesters that they've captured. So do you think that military action is off the table right now? Might the president pursue other options in the interim?
I think that the president loves keeping his options open. I think there could be strikes
and
today
playing his
or
cards
next
close
week.
to his vest as well.
But I do think the diplomatic option is important to him. The survival of those detainees is important, but I also think the two added sanction regimes that he applied this week add additional urgency that will hinder the ability of the Ayatollah to continue his finances, and I think that's a big step as well.
So the Iranians are giving the president assurances that they're not going to kill protesters, certainly not going to hang them. But at the same time, the Iranians are playing the old game that they play. Iranian TV, with this less than veiled threat against the president earlier this week, in which they put up a picture from Butler, Pennsylvania last July with the caption, "This time the bullet they're talking about won't miss." I mean, I thought that this would really tick the president off, but apparently he's kind of taking it in stride at the moment.
Well, I think he's maybe holding his cards close to his vest, but I think that he is incensed by what's going on in Iran. He is massively supportive of the protesters, and I think the fact that help is on the way in the form of an aircraft carrier and a carrier strike group is indicative of the fact that the president is maintaining all of his options and keeping them on the table.
I want to quickly ask you about Venezuela before we go. The president met with Maria Corina Machado yesterday. She presented him with a plaque that included her Nobel Peace Prize. But at the same time, the CIA director yesterday was meeting with Delcy Rodriguez, who is the interim president there in Venezuela. There you see the picture. The president, for the moment at least, is putting his chips on Rodriguez. Maybe he's thinking of a slow march to democracy there in Venezuela as opposed to toppling the regime and then a power vacuum ensues. What's your take on that strategy?
John, I think a couple of things. First of all, he clearly is okay with the compliance of the Rodriguez administration thus far, that they have been compliant sufficient to his and our objectives. But I also think he is very concerned about what he saw several decades ago in de-Baathification in Iraq. He mentioned it today in the press conference. And I think that's an example of him making sure that we don't create a power vacuum that would create chaos in the region. And instead, he's very methodical in the stabilize, recover, and transition plan that he and the Secretary of State have outlined.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we decapitated a regime and then engaged in some sort of nation-building effort that just goes to you-know-what in a handbag very quickly?
No, that's right. And I think the stability that Rodriguez provides, at least in the short term, as she is sufficiently compliant, provides the president and the region the ability to make sure that things don't get out of control against U.S. interests.
I would think that we're only on chapter 1 of a long book in Venezuela. We'll see. Thank you very much for joining us, John. Good to see you again. Appreciate it.
John, thanks for having me again.
Have a great weekend. Now this.